let's call the Board of Adjustments and Appeals,
No, Board of Equalization.
Board of Equalization to order.
Alright, in front of you, you have your minutes from last meeting, May 3rd, 2021. On there was Todd and Stacy Willem. We are not approving anything, am I correct on that? They are going to the county's meeting for their evaluation.
That would be
correct,
correct.
Maggie?
It's up to you. If you wanna do any adjustments, you can, and then they can always further them at the county.
But were they satisfied with the 340, 600? Or are they?
It sounded like they were gonna go to the county.
They were gonna go to the
Yeah.
county even if we adjusted it to
Yeah.
340.
So,
So do we wanna make both adjustments though? Does that not make sense, or what?
we, the adjustment that was proposed was the 340, 600.
Right, so we'd approve that adjustment and then they'd take it further if they want to, take it to the county.
Yep, they can do that.
We can do that.
As long as they come here, yep.
Okay. So I would need, am I correct? I would need a motion on that 340, 600 then?
Yeah, whatever if you guys wanna approve that change, yep.
I'll make a motion to approve that adjustment.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do I have any other discussion? Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed, same side, motion carried.
Okay, so the second one that came that night was Ronald and Rachel Hanson at 222 Center Avenue North. That one we have discussed it, but we did not have an evaluation. Maggie, can you help me out with that one?
Yep, we hadn't at that point. Since then, Andrea and I were able to have an interior inspection of the property on, I believe, the day after, the 4th. There were a couple minor changes that we had found to make, which overall, so the building value was 114.7. The changes bring it down to 111. So overall total value would go from 134.4 to 130,700 is what we had found. So
Can you repeat that amount again?
130,700.
And that was the proposed, and what was the original?
The original was 134,400.
Do you have a motion to that effect?
So moved. I'll second.
I got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, the third one is Amy Gappa with valuation notice of 143,200 and a proposed at 130,200. And if I remember right, Amy's like sold. But who you need the rest of you guys to make
I'll make
that.
that a motion.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
One abstention.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Okay, and then the other one that was added to the list was Mike Grote's property. And so Maggie, you'll have to help me out with that one.
Yep, so I looked into Mike's and after just kind of looking into it, reevaluating, looking at our highest and best use test, my suggestion would be to change his from valuing it as residential to valuing it as commercial because it is zoned commercially. And so in order for him to, if someone were to buy it and want to improve it with a residential structure, there would be other things that have to happen. So going through all the tests, it doesn't meet all the tests. So valuing it as commercial would meet that criteria. So my suggestion on that would be the value before, 11,800, and after changes, valuing it like the rest of the commercial property similar, would be 3,100.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Now second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And one abstention because I can't vote on my own.
Is mine-
Alright, that is all that I have on my list. Maggie,
Let's
do
do
you
that.
have anyone else that has contacted you?
No, I haven't, and nothing else to
Ray?
you guys either.
Nothing?
So by golly, then we could, motion to, close the Board of Equalization.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Alright,
Opposed, same sign. See, we got it done before 6. Still on.
Look at that.
And I don't know why I missed the bowl thing, but on my little
We don't
phone,
need to.
all I saw was workshop 6:15. I'm going, okay, I can make that.
When do we ever start anything at 6:15?
Back when we.
5:45. 6:30.
You're right, Dave. They are starting earlier all the time. I'm wrong. My bad.
Now you're gonna have to heat your supper up.
Yeah, it's soup. It doesn't matter. You can't afford anything anyhow.
Well, you're better now.
You can now, you
Yeah.
don't have to pay so much property.
You're ready to roll.
It wasn't the property taxes. The amount of
Thank
taxes
you.
paid
Good night, everybody.
was
Thank
not
you.
the issue. It was the principal of Downs Foods
yeah.
buying a piece of property for $30,000 and valued at that. Which, now it isn't that way.
No, I mean, that's compared to across the street.
Here, you can start with these.
Oh, there they are.
I mean, I would.
So do I have to wait till 6:15 or not?
No.
No? Then I'd open the workshop up and I'm guessing the chief's the first thing, huh?
No,
Unless you wanna talk 3-2 beer first.
Good.
Go ahead, Rob.
We
You
can do
wanna
3-2.
But I wanna make sure you got enough time.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I've been running like a chicken with my head cut off, so I
3-2.
was plenty prepared last time, and I'm not prepared at all to talk about anything tonight, so. So now I got extra time and don't really know how to approach anything with you. Just kinda give an update, Kyle has left us now. We have had our application process open for a week. I got somebody from the military out in South Dakota that called and asked about reciprocity coming over, and after answering some questions, they realized they weren't ready for that yet, cause they still needed to get their skills training. Had somebody stop in to pick up an application that was moving here from Texas, and then realized after they got in the application and did some further checking that they didn't realize it wasn't like Texas, where in Texas you get hired and then they put you through school. They just assumed they could apply for the job, which told me that they didn't actually read the job description that we posted at all. So we've gotten one actual application at this point in time, and that person's not actually going to be finishing college until June, and their skills in June, and then still have to take their tests. So they're not actually eligible for licensure or to be hired at this point in time either.
Was that the one that was riding with your,
Nope, that's a different person. They are eligible and just has not turned in an application as of yet. So I mean, that's a possibility. So
is that because he had a conversation with the mayor and he decided he wasn't gonna be employed by the city of Medina?
no comment. I can't say yes or no on that. I guess I haven't asked him any questions. So, you know, I was blaming Colin until you mentioned that. So maybe that's the issue.
Well, they stopped, you know, and it was dark out and I had to ask those questions, you know, because there was this other person in the squad car that I didn't know, and I'm going, usually they ride in the back seat when, but he
No,
was,
we're doing things differently in this day and age, you know, it's all about officer friendly and things like that, so I'm pretty sure the cages are gonna go away and it'll just be a mini bar back there pretty soon, finish the job, but anyway. No, so that's kind of where things are sitting. I really don't know where we'll be going with the hiring process. It's just gonna take some time to get the applications in. We currently have 6 part-time officers. We just added an additional deputy that's gonna be filling some part-time shifts. And I met with a full-time officer from Springfield today. She brought in her background packet, and she's gonna be basically offering to pick up some shifts too. So that should bring our part-time officer total up to 8. And with that, hopefully we'll have a little bit more availability as far as picking up some of the open shifts that we're going to have. So, you know, I'll be working during the week, picking up weekend shifts as needed, and then the other 2 officers will be covering the night shifts for the foreseeable future until we get things back on track. Like I said, I kind of went through a Cliff Notes version of things 2 weeks ago, and I don't really want to try and rehash anything that I covered. I just know that we're going to have to start looking at some type of alternative here in the future. I think moving down the line, I think we're coming to a crossroads here where some decisions are going to have to be made on what the city wants to see for coverage for officers, what they want to see the identity of the department being in the future, and the sustainability. You know, the difficulty is obviously everything you do costs money no matter what, so it's just a matter of what, you know, you as a council decide that you wanted to look into. Do you have any direction that you want to see as a group, or where you think things need to go?
So, is there any guesses on with the new requirements coming out that we're not even gonna be able to train some of those in-house anymore? And is that gonna be a refundable thing, or is that gonna be a county setup thing because of, they haven't really given guidelines yet, have they?
No, well, I mean, a lot of the training that's required through statute, that's required under our post licensure is reimbursed through the state of Minnesota now. You know, when they require us to take specific trainings, then typically that training gets reimbursed by the state. You know, we don't see full reimbursement, but we get a portion of it back. But, you know, as to where things are gonna go as far as training requirements in the future, I guess I'm not really sure. They only require 48 hours of additional training, some of which is covered annually in our required trainings per 3-year licensure period. So, you know, the number of hours of training are pretty minimal statewide, quite frankly, but you know, here in Madelia, we're, you know, always well above and beyond that, just because we, you know, do tend to train, you know, better than they do. I shouldn't say better than they do around the state, but we certainly are, you know, above and beyond, you know, the 48 hours. So, but no, I'm not sure where we're going to go in the future. So I do want you to be thinking about that as a group. You know, obviously, ideally, I've been kind of hesitant to bring up the idea of a 5th officer over the years because I'm concerned about, you know, the calls for service and things like that, but it certainly does impact the staffing issues that we've been kind of struggling with for the better part of a decade here. You know, when we lost that 5th officer in 2008, it was something that we managed by just cutting back the number of hours we staffed, but the problem is again, once you do lose that 4th officer, it puts you at a real critical position as far as trying to cover your basic shifts that you do have, and no amount of cutting really you know, no amount of cutting the hours really helps, because you're still, you know, going to have to respond, and those who are left are gonna have to respond. The difficulty I face is, you know, when we're talking about tax increases and things like that for the community, you know, it's pretty hard to come in here and ask for additional staffing to cover those difficulties and putting into a rotation where we were, you know, 10 years ago. So I'm realistic about those types of things, and I realize that it all costs money. You know, like I said, that $100,000 figure, you know, for the first year includes the equipment and wages and things like that. It's probably a little bit less in consecutive years, but each one of those positions does cost the city, and I'm trying to be responsible for that. I've been trying to be responsible about that for years, including, you know, picking up the secretarial duties and things like that to try and cover some of that cost increase. But, you know, even doing all of that, you know, back when we had 5 officers, we're now well above that budget just with 4, so, and no secretaries. So, like I said, those costs are gonna continue to increase no matter what you do. So, but it's a struggle, and it's a stressful struggle, because you're basically not able to get people their time away and their time off, and we can all, you know, I guess we can sit and whine about woe is me and things like that too, but it does take its toll over time.
So right now, I just need clarification for my notes or whatever. When you say alternative options, are we the 5th officer? What are the other alternative options?
Well, like I said, I kind of covered that in the last one. The other option is to just do nothing, and we just continue as we go, which is probably what we're going to end up doing, I think, in the long run, unless I hear anything different from the council. The other option is, like I said, was looking into the contracting with the county. That takes some of the onus off of me as far as the staffing issue. It becomes not my problem. It becomes the problem of the sheriff and the chief deputy over there. But I think, having looked into that in past situations when we were trying to find ways to cut costs back in 2008, when we were dealing with the recessions and things like that, we ultimately discovered, and I don't know that it really has changed any, is that the bulk of your costs in operating anything is in your staffing. And whether you change the amount of people from staffing here or over to the sheriff's office, that cost is going to remain a constant. The only way to alleviate that is to basically eliminate officer presence in the community if you start running with less deputies, and then your response is going to be coming from St. James a lot of the time, or Butterfield, or someplace else, so your response times are going to change. So, like I said, your control over your enforcement becomes more difficult. Some of those little things, as far as the direction of ordinance enforcement and things like that, sidewalk inspections, some of those other little ancillary things that we do on a regular basis to try and kind of help get those things taken care of, will probably suffer, because they're just not going to get done by the sheriff's office. It's very difficult to get those things done. So, then you're kind of looking at trying to create a position to do some of that ordinance or inspection work and stuff like that too, and then they have to forward that stuff off to the sheriff's office to charge out if you don't get it done. So some of it can still be done administratively, like billing residents for sidewalk removal once you clear the streets and things like that. But I don't want to get too far into the weeds and the details of stuff like that. Just suffice to say that there's going to be a trade-off.
Community, I mean,
What's that?
about the 5th officer. I mean, how long is it going to last, realistically, in your head, do you think, running these guys the way they're running?
Well,
You included.
I don't know.
Probably not too long.
Yeah. Well, that's the stressful thing. I'll be I'll be just blatantly honest with you, 2016 just about did me in, and I was looking at applying out someplace just to be a patrol officer somewhere because, you know, getting blindsided with losing 2 officers at once and the secretary all within a month's time, that took a lot out of me. So it does take a lot out of you, and I've done my best to try and work the schedules to take some of the slack off of, you know, the people who are left here, and picking that stuff up, because you know, you want to try and keep the people that you do have happy. And what tends to happen, and we've seen it in St. James and other places that kind of went through this, you go into a situation where somebody leaves and another officer leaves, and pretty soon the remaining people that are there have to pick up all the slack, and they get kind of burned out and disgruntled, and they're like, well, I'm going to start looking out
And I think
someplace
that's
else
where
too.
we're at now,
Well,
to a point.
to a
I
point,
mean,
to a point.
But that's also kind of what this position is. I mean, the 4th officer or the, you know, 3rd officer, you and your sergeant, but realistically, those officers were planned for, I mean, we kind of had that as a game plan that they were going to probably get 3 years experience and move on.
Yeah,
4 years experience and move on once they head to a bigger, you know, town, bigger department. It's great if they stay, I mean, but budget wise, that's kind of what we had discussed the whole time.
right.
And I don't disagree with you that I mean, it stinks losing somebody that you invested in, because you've gone through and done all the painstaking work of training them how you want them, you know, or to perform to your standard, and now you have to start over from scratch with and like you said, quality candidates aren't, you know, super easy to come by either.
I think that's the big concern I see moving forward, and maybe what's kind of been the game changer for me in looking at this is that I'm concerned about the number of people that we're going to have to choose from becoming a little more of a concern. So, you know, you get somebody that applies and you decide this is the best you can get, and you take them, you're kind of stuck trying to work that into your department as best you can, and you know, you're maybe willing to accept less than what you ideally would otherwise, and that's always that
So
fourth position.
is the quality of policing in this town gonna be better if we have 2 of those people? If we have 2 officers that aren't creme de la creme, you know what I mean?
Right,
Is that gonna make your job easier, training 2 people that aren't top notch?
right. Well, no, quite frankly, but here's what I do see. I do see that the ability of, you know, going to 5 versus 4 is giving you a little bit of cushion on things.
Yeah.
If you see a problem, you can eliminate it and run your department with a 4-officer rotation pretty easily. And each time that somebody does decide that they're gonna apply out and leave us, we're able to fall back on a rotation that covers that schedule more easily, and it gives opportunities to cover vacations and all those things.
Yeah.
Don't have to rely on trying to get part-time people here that are actually employed full-time someplace else.
So
And trying to cover those
is
gaps.
the part-time, I know the last time we kinda went through this, or the last time we discussed the part-time roster, it was at like 14 or 15, has it been trimmed down to 8? Or there's just 8 people that actually work?
No, I mean, I think that at most we've always had, you know, about 8 is kind of the limit of what we've had. It's just I've always basically added the full-time people we have in as the total number of officers
Oh.
that got us closer to that number.
Sure.
But you know, they're full-time employed elsewhere. So
Yeah.
when we have an opening in the schedule or somebody wants time off, they send out an email to everybody and says, is anybody available to work those days? So sometimes you get one that will pick up both days. Sometimes you get one one officer that's available to work this day, and another officer is able to work this day, and we just kind of plug and play in the gaps. And you know, for a while there, we're kind of dwindling down on the part-time availability too. So I'm trying to build that up and work with that as what we've got. But you know, ultimately they're working someplace else, and they're taking their days off to come and pick up a shift here and there for a little bit extra cash. But I've also operated under the assumption that it is, an additional job, and if they've got something going on, or they just, don't wanna pick the shift up, they're under no obligation to do so.
Right.
So, and when they don't, then,
Where are all these people coming? Where's these 8 from? Just Springfield?
well, Springfield will be the new officer. We have a couple from the sheriff's office. We do have I still have the chief deputy on the list, although he, is not really available to cover shifts. But as I told him, I said, if you're on our roster and somebody breaks their leg and we need somebody in a pinch, I know you'll come in and help out. So, so some are more available than others. We also have Chris Bourbon from Lake Crystal that's still working for us and picking up shifts. We have one officer from New Ulm that's working for us, picking up shifts. So,
And these people they're already working full time, and they're just picking up extra?
They're
Yep.
picking up extra.
correct.
Where our people are working their regular
Well,
plus extra? Why
They're,
are we having these problems when other places can have people come here? I mean, is New Ulm not hurting for officers? Is Lake Crystal not hurting for officers?
Everybody is.
Is Springfield not? Well, obviously
They
they're
are.
not, because they're taking on more work.
well, our officers
I'm
go
gonna
and,
go to a place we're not probably all gonna like.
our officers, when we were at 4, they were picking up shifts in other towns. too.
How? Why?
Why?
When they're already getting, if you have 4, they're already getting overtime now.
Yeah, but they're young and they like money, and
Then they shouldn't
Yeah.
complain if they're getting overworked.
I don't know if they were getting complaints. I think they were just.
Well, I'm listening to Cody, I'm listening to Chief, we're burning everybody out. But we can take shifts in other towns? I don't think that's happening now, I'm pretty sure that's not happening at all, cause if
I
it
don't
is,
know.
then
Last
that
time-
conversation is ended mute right now.
Yeah. No, it's
If
not.
our officers are taking hours somewhere else, I don't even wanna hear that conversation
No,
again.
I don't think we've had an officer take.
Right?
I mean,
That's
when's
not
the last
happening
time
right now,
something like
right?
that?
I don't wanna go there.
No, I think the only
And
time.
that's 100% true, right? No one, in the last 2 months, our officers are not taking out anything else anywhere else.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what but other towns are able to do that. I wanna know why that is. See where I'm going there? I wanna know why other towns,
Well, they
have
a full
officers.
roster.
well, evidently they can hire them real fast. Are we off on our pay scale?
well,
Are we not wanting to work with people? Are we having trouble with people in our crew right now?
No, I don't think so. I think the people that have just been here that have left have went to go closer to home.
Then everybody else is having those same problems then, correct?
They do.
they do.
They are?
They are, and City of Fairmont, the new city manager came in and, she did an audit of, the police department, and they're on a wage freeze, indefinitely at this time because apparently they snuck a couple extra raises in there. And they're the highest paid department in the area. So,
How do you sneak raises in? That doesn't make any
No.
sense at all.
somewhere along the line, and Fairmont's had a turnover of management.
Then the chief of
and
police should have been fired if he put them through another full
he
outlet.
was fired, he was asked to leave, so, but, yeah, they've had some issues, Dave, but anyhow, a couple weeks ago at their council meeting, the city manager came in and said, I'd like to impose a wage freeze for the police department, their wages aren't in scale what they're supposed to be making. So the new city manager found it, the old one resigned from his position and moved somewhere else.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Are we off or what? Are we off?
I don't think so. We did lose one to Fairmont and I think that was a financial incentive there.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't blame anybody for
they are,
making better financial choices.
yeah, they pay very well. So I mean, there was a big jump going there, but I think by and large
We have there, we would too.
the turnover we've had here recently is moving someplace closer to home.
Closer to family.
In fact, we gained Officer Meadow for the same reason. I mean, we basically poached him from another department because it was an
Because he
opportunity for
grew
him
up
to
in
get
Fairmont and his folks live in, Lake Crystal
yeah.
now.
So he's now
Yeah.
closer to home.
So he's closer to home, and that's why we got him.
But odds of that happening again are pretty slim. I mean, that was kind of the stars all aligning in good order for once, thankfully for us. But typically it's the other way around. People are desperate for, getting their feet wet and getting onto into a job and getting their license activated. And much like me, I wanted a job. I was willing to move. I didn't care where it was. I applied in Madelia. I told the city administrator and the police chief at the time that I'd give them 5 years. I couldn't guarantee anything more than that. And I'm still here 21 years later, but it's because of a lot of different factors. It doesn't happen regularly.
How many sheriff's deputies do we have?
Six,
That's
no,
all they
it's-
have is 6?
No, it's more than that.
on the road? You got
Well, I mean,
Ryan,
I guess, yeah, not including the chief deputy
Ryan,
and the deputy, then there's.
Brandon. The
13.
There's probably 6 on the
Eight.
road, and then
Yeah.
there's the
You got 6 on the road, I think, and then
Six
you've
off.
got
Four,
the
4 or
sheriff
5
and
on the road.
Slater
5 on the road. And an investigator.
and an investigator.
Well, I mean, we have 10,000 people in this county. St. James has a police department, we have a police department, we have a sheriff's department. I mean, for 10,000 people, how many people should we have? I mean, is it supposed to be 1 officer per 500, per 200? Because
Well, and there's
that's
the
serious.
question. I want to say it's like per 500 or so, but that's the kind of questions that I should be prepared to answer when I come in here. And I will tell you right
That's
now,
fine.
it's been a little bit
I don't need,
wonky the last couple of weeks.
I
So
have a commissioner here, I can ask him too. And he didn't know the answer,
I'll
so,
message this later if he's got his phone on. I don't know how many deputies there are.
I mean, I'm just wondering, you know what I'm saying?
and I do.
10,000 people in one county.
Dave, if I can say something, when I was mayor, I had a meeting with the sheriff, chief of police from Adelia, chief of police from St. James. My goal was to get a working schedule, not combine one department.
Right.
We could work back and forth. I got laughed out of the room.
No, I know, and I have two,
I tried it.
Well, people are
It sucks.
people
It
tend to
just
be very
sucks.
territorial on things, and and some of it comes
And they
from the
should be,
communities
and they should
themselves.
stop being territorial.
I-
That should end.
I don't disagree
today.
with you. I'm actually more inclined to at least approach the idea of cooperating and working as a group. But I think that when you venture into those things, a lot of times the group then starts to decide they want certain things, and people don't get happy, and you combine, and then eventually don't like it and separate again and go the other way, and then you got to start all over again. It can become very expensive. So there's departments that have eliminated their own department, contracted, and then found that they weren't happy with those services and reverted back to starting their own department up again, and incurred a lot of cost in doing so. So
I know we advertised and we're planning on leaving that advertisement open until the position was filled, is that correct?
that's correct, and I'm leaving it open. We'll see what we get for applicants, and
So are you thinking you're just gonna interview as applications come in, or as you feel a candidate's, actually qualified, we'll just give them an interview, and if we decide it's a good enough interview, we'll just hire,
it's
or are you gonna give a?
probably a decision for the personnel committee, I guess.
There are 9 total, Dave,
9 total
including
plus-
Slater.
Yeah,
So
so you got sheriff, chief deputy,
Ten
and
with the sheriff,
investigator.
we talked. So
Well,
nine-
that's less than I thought they
He
had.
said 9 of us total was his response.
Yeah.
Kinda what I'm wondering is if we should leave it open for 2 weeks, or until you get maybe a pool of 4 qualified applicants. We'll set up interviews for 4. If that takes a month, or if that takes 3 weeks, or whatever it takes to get 4, well,
Oh, we should run the ad till it's filled.
Well, we'll definitely run the ad till it's filled, but what I'm saying, we shouldn't, necessarily wait until we get 10 applicants before we start doing the interview process. I'd like to find that
Yeah, remember, we should find that happy medium of how many we wanna get. I mean, Rob can't just keep dropping and coming, he's covering shifts already.
Right, that's
And
what
now we
I'm
gotta
saying,
come
that's
in
why you
and-
wanna,
and
that's why you
interview.
wanna get it filled as quickly as possible. I think if you have a pool of 4 to 6 applicants, we can at least make a decision if, hey, there's not a qualified applicant in this 4, or there's maybe 1, maybe there's 2, and maybe then we redecide that it's maybe not gonna be as hard as we thought it was gonna be to fill this vacancy, I don't know.
9 includes the sheriff, Dave.
Yeah, so
That includes the
6
sheriff.
on the
9
road,
including the sheriff.
3 in
That's way less than I thought.
But I would think that filling the 4th position would be the first step. Then maybe, I'd love to see some call statistics or something that say when are the actual calls coming in, when are the time periods we should be covering, and did we gain anything by, bringing on or giving the ambulance to the hospital and having a full-time EMT and that type of coverage on the service, calls, the actual ambulance calls and stuff that you guys would normally be responding to if there was nobody on?
I would just, I don't know what the cost is, and that's something that Chris probably has a better handle on, but I can tell you just, when the page goes out, it's been very nice lately. There's definitely been a staffing improvement, just in the response times and some kind of regularity in the personnel that shows up. So, as far as ambulance responses, I mean, and now being in their own building and kind of being staffed,
Yeah.
there are times then that they're beating me to the calls based on the side of the, the city that it's on. So, and that would have never happened, prior to this. So,
Everything with the ambulance has been a win-win.
yeah, there's an.
On our budget?
I guess my question is, did we gain anything as a police department from having that, as far as that we could let, say, 7 till 9 in the morning on, midday or midweek days or something, kind of lapse as a coverage, where we give that up to sheriff's office or whatever, or give up, try to cut some hours here and there, depending on what we have for other people on. You know what I mean? Because if the crime call volume isn't there, say from, like I said, 7 to 10 in the morning midweek, is that something where the local ambulance will be able to cover any health related stuff? The sheriff's department could pick up the rest of the coverage if there's a high speed chase or something, and then we could pick up or gain some equity there in certain places. I don't know. And I don't know if that's something you'd be willing to do, but what I'm thinking is, if this is going to be a continual issue, where we're having to bring in part-timers and having to bring in, secondary staffing or whatever, maybe it's best that we try to re-examine where our coverages are and what makes the most sense, and try to work it out where there's, county coverage for the areas that aren't high in call volume right now. And I know that changes too, and it's cyclic and everything else, but there's probably enough statistics over the last number of years where we have a pretty good grasp of when the calls are coming in and what they need to do.
Well,
Especially in the interim when we're down an officer, maybe it's a temporary schedule for this summer or for whenever we're short staffed. And
that's what
once
we're running.
Right, and then once the fourth officer comes on, we can, try to get back to the old schedule or whatever, but in the short term, it might be best just to kind of look at when those calls come in and see if we can adjust that way.
Well, that's essentially what I've done, Andy.
Okay.
I mean, we basically run it so that our shifts that are open are on the weekend. We're
Okay.
basically not staffing a full-time officer on the weekend. We're trying to cover that with
Part-time.
part-time people, because weekend day shifts is typically the easiest shift for somebody to come in and try and pick up if they're going to do
Sure.
one. And then if we don't have anybody available, then we're trying to cover that with on-call time. ideally, I'd like to have somebody on, you know,
Sure.
the tough part is I know the mayor brought it up many years ago when we were running short, it's like, well, take call if you gotta go home in the middle of the day and mow your lawn and, come back if you get called and go do it. And, the tough part is that you get home and you get on the tractor and start getting a little grubby, and it's not easy to drop what you're doing and run back to the house, grab a, uniform and get back to the scene in a timely manner, and people start wondering where the police officer is and why it's taking so long, especially when there's an argument going on and there's two people, going at it.
Some of them people just gotta kill each other because we beat
Well,
That might be a little hard.
anywho,
Please do not print that.
well, that's kind of where things are probably headed.
fix all the, you can't fix the what
It's
ifs.
wrong. People are gonna do what they're gonna do.
You can't fix the what ifs. You
I
just
know.
pick days that are slower and you take time off.
You may be onto something as far as where policing in general is headed, as far as
And some of
what they
those you
want
don't want to
officers to
show up
actually do.
until after they're done doing whatever they're doing because you're going to be liable or the city's going to be liable.
In this day and age.
In this day and age, let them do whatever they need to do first and then show up. I mean, or you're going to have to get the county psychiatrist to come along with you anyhow, so you're going to wait a half hour, 45 minutes before you can go to the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a county psychiatrist yet that is available to the police department.
I think there's mass over there in the corner.
Okay,
If you want one.
we don't need one?
No.
Okay.
Only if you choose to.
So, anyhow,
Thanks, Mayor.
I thought we were gonna have to get the sheepdog out for you.
Alright, so where are we at?
kinda got a little
'Cause
thrown off on
I
that.
still wanna talk about 3-2.
Okay. Anyhow, I think we need to keep advertising and then as the applications come in, we get more than one or two credible, we'll interview them and, we'll see if we can't get them hired if they pass all the requirements. And I truly believe before our state legislators are done with session, they're gonna come up with a whole bunch of stupid things that are gonna be required for the county and cities before you can hire an officer anymore. And people aren't gonna go into it, so, which leaves outstate Minnesota and small town Bedelia, with another challenge.
Okay, 3-2.
3-2.
Alright, a couple weeks ago, I think at the last April council meeting, we had discussed Casey's requesting a 3-2 liquor license. I sent out, an email to all of you guys in regards to my concern in regards to continuing with, doing that. If
Didn't we
it-
approve it already though?
we approved them just going and submitting an application.
Oh, okay.
We haven't approved it because it still has to come back from the state if it's approved or not. But I wanted you guys to really think about in regards to, is this something that you want to allow? Because if it does go to allowing them to sell hard booze and hard beer, or beer and liquor in the grocery stores and stuff like that, are we going to allow everybody to do it then? You know?
Well, I think that's the real question is it a loophole for them to, get a license now and then say that they're grandfathered in when they eliminate 3-2 licensing and go to just straight offset?
But we're the municipality.
Right,
We control that.
right, so we just deny
So
it
do
then,
we
but,
just deny it altogether?
There's a very open question there that Andy's onto, that when and if the state eliminates a 3-2 license, we don't know what they're gonna do.
right.
I don't
So,
believe they'll take away the municipality. We own the rights to sell alcohol in this town at this point.
Yes, that is correct. So if you guys
If we
approve,
let them do this, does that crack the door open?
that's
I
what
say
we're
no.
asking.
that's what I'm saying
I say
tonight,
no.
and that's
I
why
say
I
we don't
came
allow
back.
Well, the only counterpoint to that is, well, how can you tell somebody that is legally asking to apply for something that's legal today, that no, we're not going to allow you to try to make that sale because it might be something where it leads to regular off sale down the road. I don't know.
So what way do we go here? What,
Can
do
you-
we have to vote on it?
Well,
Can you get 3-2 anymore?
my,
Well, see,
So
that's,
far they can, but it's very,
Very
it's getting to
limited.
that point where,
I was kinda told that it doesn't even really exist, everybody just pays the fine.
yeah, I don't know.
well, my question is,
I
just
go to
if you
Casey's in
walk
St. James,
into
it
our
sounds like they can.
Casey's in
Should say
Bedelia
3-2.
at any given, weeknight, there isn't anybody old enough to sell beer in the store.
Well, and that's the thing too, I don't know if that, I mean, they have to have a.
They have to have
18-year-old.
somebody of age, and most of the people working, a lot of those shifts aren't of age anymore.
So did they say that, is this like a store to store where the store manager's requesting this, or
No,
is this
it's
Casey corporate?
Corporate.
is asking for it. And but I called her back and, well, we went through the whole thing with the bowling alley in regards to the 3-2, and so we got them on, a wine license because they have 25 seats to serve food, which allows him to buy the strong beer, and that was great, but that was going through all the 3-2 issue, and so I called her back at corporate and I said, are you sure you want this 3-2 when it's so hard to get this? And she said, oh no, we have a vendor, we're fine.
But I don't remember seeing beer in most of their stores anymore.
St. James, I
You see them in St. James?
do. Yeah, I got beer there.
Well, there's beer in all of them
And
and
they have a
every other
municipality.
state around.
I mean,
It's, I'm just throwing it out there, and I don't think we had the opportunity to talk about it the
I
last
just
time.
think the 3-2, if it's a hard 3-2, I think they're,
Well, I mean, nothing says we
So
can't,
further, no.
if it's approved now, I would assume we still have to approve it annually for the same way that everybody else has to get approved for a
We-
liquor license annually.
Yeah, right now, currently, we do not have anybody that sells 3-2 retail at all.
Right. But even next,
So this would be something new, I
but
mean,
even if legislation changes before next year, we will have that opportunity to revoke their 3-2 or their upcoming liquor license every year, right? They have to bring
yeah,
it.
they have to renew their liquor license
Every
every year
year.
with us.
So it doesn't hurt to let them go through with it now, as long as we're aware that when the legislation changes, you know,
I'm not gonna okay it. I think I emailed that to you.
Yeah,
that's fine.
well, is it
Which
some,
brings up another thing, where are we at, where are you at with it? You think it's not a problem?
Well, I just think it doesn't send a real good message to say, no, we don't want you to,
So alcohol.
when it's
because
legal.
We control the municipality.
Right.
It's the way it.
Well, when they legalize weed, are we gonna sell that?
Well, I was just gonna go there. Because
I
I
think we should get
believe
on
we
ground
need
for
to
that.
get, I don't wanna get off the 3-2. I'm gonna say no, I'm only one vote. But the other thing that we do need to start looking at is controlling that as a municipality. And we're gonna need we're gonna need that language in our laws, and we want to control that as a municipality. Because then we can say we don't want it in town. We can say we don't want shops in town, or if we have them, we run them. I mean, what else you got to do? It's a dime bag cost today.
I was thinking you could start a grow operation down at the golf course. If that's losing money, you might be able to make money down there, but I'm just throwing that out.
That's just a whole other thing I think we need in our city thing,
okay.
whatever they call that, for
Charter?
charter.
But I don't,
So at
how
least we
far,
have control over it.
does
Right.
anybody have any
Sales and
idea
everything
to?
in my
No, you
office?
can just say if it's sold in town, it's sold through a municipality, and if the municipality chooses not to sell it, then we don't have people roguely coming in and doing it. Correct?
Right. Can I
Okay.
call Jeremy and find out where the 3-2's at? I mean, is it within a couple of years?
I thought it was,
I
That
thought it
would be-
was too, I
that
thought they
would
were
be
getting rid
bad.
of it.
yeah.
I thought they were gonna get rid of the license altogether just because of the scarcity of the product.
The case is big enough, somebody will keep producing it.
But that's what I heard too, that they don't act, I mean, that Casey's probably pays the fine, gets regular beer and pays the fine. Even if it's stamped in a 3-2 can, I heard they don't change all these distributors just put regular beer in 3-2 cans and pay the fine is what I was told.
Jeez.
I don't know if that's true or not, but
It's
that was,
hanging them out there a little bit.
I've been misinformed on a
I
lot
think
of
you
things,
should,
so.
I think you should. See what he says?
Do you wanna put it on next council meeting?
No,
You wanna do it tonight,
no.
Uh,
June,
June?
Well,
Start
why
looking
don't
at
we
it.
see if the state actually approves their we still have to approve it after the state
Yeah.
gives them okay anyway.
Yep, I will go through the motions and then bring it back and we'll see where we sit.
cause I just keep tabling it,
I'll
filibuster it.
I'll reach out to our representative and see if he has an idea where it's at.
Alright,
What guidance were you looking at on that? Just yay or nay, or what?
I just wanted you to be aware of what could possibly happen or what, just be up to date on if we allow them the 3-2 license, will it open the door for other things?
Cause that's my other question is, so say this wasn't Sunshine, well, it is Sunshine Foods, it's a corporate grocery store. If they have a corporate Minnesota state liquor license and add beer SKUs, it's only location to location, approved through municipality, or they can just get a,
No, it's gotta be location to
It's
location.
gotta be-
That liquor license coincides with an actual address
so
and the buyer's
it'll
card
be
and
the same for
everything.
Casey's where they'll have to go through us to get it, so we can deny it at any time.
Because a lot of your Sunshine Foods do sell liquor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And that opens the door for all of your grocery stores and your gas stations in town. That's what I'm trying to get at, where do you guys wanna be?
well, right, and I have no problem denying it either, the only thing that I, don't necessarily wanna set the message of, but maybe that is the message we wanna send, cause that is directly affecting one of our enterprise accounts, so.
Maybe we just sell Casey's the beer to it. For the same
We
price
can't get it.
we'll sell it for the same price we sell it for. It's in a convenience store. Convenience. It's 11 o'clock at night, you go buy
No,
it local.
we need no 12 packs at 11 o'clock at
Yeah, we don't have a police force, what do you want to do?
night. No, what are you trying to do to us, man?
Dang.
Wow.
What road you guys wanna go down?
Pretty easy, just say no.
We already said yes to the application, but it's.
Let's
We're
see
just
what, let's see
gonna fill
what
out
the
the
state says.
application and see where it
Let's
goes,
see where it goes.
and then they'll bring it back.
No table.
Okay, what else is on your,
That's it.
that's it?
We can take a little
I'll
bit
do
of
that.
break.
We had enough? Then I need a motion to close the workshop.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Stand adjourned.